Women! Yay for women! All right, you guys. Yay! Aloha. Thank you guys so much for being here today. I'm Brooke Bergstaller. I'm a cannabis writer and reporter. And with me today are some incredible women cannabis entrepreneurs. All right, so we are live streaming this today, and also if you guys are taking any photos or sharing any content, please tag these women and their incredible companies because it's the era of content. So I'm gonna give brief introductions. Just really quick, we have Erin Gore, who is the founder of Garden Society. We have Madison Margolin, co-founder of Double Blind and also an incredible journalist. Courtney Dorn, who is the president of Vertical Brands. Nicole Fox, founder and CEO of Aeon Botanica. And Elizabeth Barron, who is the CMO of the Shrine Group. Woohoo! All right, so you guys can probably say it in better words. I'd love to just go down the line and spend 2 minutes briefly introducing yourself, your company, and how you found your way into the cannabis industry. What started the path for you? Erin.
Thank you so much, Brooke. Is this on? There we go. Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. My name is Erin Gore. I'm the founder and CEO of Garden Society. We're a women's lifestyle company focused as a benefit corporation for products and education for women. Interestingly, 40% of our consumers are men. I started the company out of self-need. I needed to find something to make me feel better through chronic pain, and then the stress of being a modern woman, trying to have a career and a family and everything else of the pressures that we deal with, and kept turning back to cannabis and realized there was nothing for me in the market. And this was in 2015. So I started tinkering and creating products, and then I realized I was in the closet and ashamed about it, and created a movement with friends, realizing we all wanted to explore cannabis and how it could help us, and that was really the precipice for how Garden Society came to be.
Awesome. And now they make these super beautifully packaged
Thank you. Shameless promotion.
Thank you so much. Madison.
Hi, I'm Madison Margolin. I am a journalist. I've been covering cannabis for about 5 years. Currently, I work as an editor at Civilized, which is a cannabis lifestyle publication, and I've also freelanced about cannabis for a number of other publications, Rolling Stone, Playboy, Vice, stuff like that. And most recently, I co-founded a magazine on psychedelics called Double Blind, so we're biannual print and digital. And I kind of see cannabis as a gateway plant or a gateway beat into covering all sorts of plant medicine and other types of ways that people can address their wellness. So that's my relationship to this.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Courtney Dorn. My background is food manufacturing and distribution. Cannabis has been super personal to me. I've had 3 spine surgeries. I have 6 fused vertebrae. I'm allergic to narcotics. Have had a medical wreck since the 90s, and I've really been passionate about the industry. I sold my food company actually 4 years ago today, and have been in cannabis full-time ever since. I joined a group that we created Vertical, and technically, I guess, we're a house of brands, and everything else we do is to support the supply chain of our brands. So a lot of trial and tribulations over the last several years, but we grow, extract, manufacture, distribute, and everything in between.
Excellent.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Barone, and I have a couple decades of experience in marketing. I had the privilege of representing some of the finest brands, from potato chips, Lay's potato chips, to Pepsi, to Crown Royal, to Hennessy, and so it was a natural transition for me to go into cannabis, which is something people enjoy as well. So I love to build brands. I find this a great opportunity to enter into the new frontier and sort of apply principles of big brand marketing into this space, destigmatize the category, and invite new consumers in by educating and inspiring them with this flower.
I'm Nicole Fox, and I come from the time when we called cannabis a movement and not an industry, and it's still a movement to me. I've been involved in cannabis in Los Angeles since 2003, and I always like to say cannabis found me. I just finished grad school as a dietitian from UCLA, never smoked pot in my life, didn't really drink. And who did I fall in love with the summer after grad school? A grower. Yeah, it's like that. So within 6 months of meeting him, 6 months of graduation, I opened the 10th dispensary in Los Angeles. It's called The Higher Path. A few months after that, The Green Goddess. I don't own them anymore, but that was my kind of entree into cannabis. And about 80% of the people that came in were, young guys just wanting to get as high as possible. But there was about 20% of our customers, our patients that were coming in that really had legitimate, chronic pain, anxiety, nausea from chemo. And those were the patients that I loved because I would work with them with their diet, their lifestyle, their sleep, as well as with cannabis, like really creating this cannabis wellness program for them. And that inspired me to just stay in cannabis all these years. And so my newest ideation in cannabis is a vertically integrated brand called Aeon Botanica. We have a cannabis wellness product line that has, minerals and other herbs that we've developed with an herbalist that are in all of our products. We have a retail space and on-site consumption lounge and wellness center opening in West Hollywood in March. So I'm really bringing my cannabis wellness vision all to life. So I always say I'm in the middle of raising capital right now, if anyone's interested. and I always say, that we're a startup, 17 years in the making.
Truth.
Thank you so much for that, everyone. And thank you, Nicole. Very excited. I live in West Hollywood, so that's an amazing location to peg. You mentioned something interesting about a lot of your customers coming in very masculine energy, wanting to get as high as possible. And that's something that I have observed so much of is the desire for people to seek the highest THC concentrates and get fucked up from weed. And what I would love to know, Erin, I'll start with you. What do you think is the most authentic offering that the feminine energy can bring to the cannabis space? And what is our service to the cannabis space?
Sure, that is a loaded question for sure. The cannabis plant's a female, right? A lot of people don't realize that. That's what we consume. And so I think it's only natural for women to lead the movement from a healing perspective. I think, obviously, traditionally men are part of corporate. When you look at big financing, big corporate, what's happening in the cannabis industry, it's extremely male dominated. I think it's our responsibility as women to continue to have a presence and grow that presence so we can do things different, both from a value-driven business lens as well as from a healing lens. So whether that's compassion programs, veterans programs, whether that's looking at social equity in a different way that provides authentic opportunity, all of that is being driven by the feminine voice, looking for equality in the marketplace and equality in the social place. So I think there's a lot of responsibility that lands on us as women, but also a lot on the consumers to choose products and brands and to choose to do business and consume in a way that supports the values you want to see from the women you want to see.
Absolutely. Vote with your dollar. Elizabeth. There is a lot of flexibility. I think women are just naturally gifted at being flexible and adaptable, but there is a lot of flexibility required no matter your gender in the cannabis space to stay committed to the path. You are constantly being hit with lack of funding or legality issues, etc. So how have you learned to stay grounded in pursuit of your cannabis endeavors?
That's a great question. It's an ongoing process. It's a commitment to managing ambiguity and being okay with it. It's constant change, and for me, I like a good challenge, so I'm up for it. So really, it's about sort of throwing all the rules out the door and being able to adapt when regulations change, when the investment doesn't come in, when valuations are down, and what do you do next? I think when you build a brand for the long run, you have a different mindset. And I think as women in this industry, we stay connected to our values, both personally and what we commit to. And I think that stands the test of time, no matter what waves we encounter along the way.
Mm-hmm. Does anyone want to add to that? Just think it's...
Yeah.
I think women by nature, you said, flexible and adaptable. I think we're also our sensitive side, right? Yes, we cry, guys, I know. But the upside of that is we're really sensitive to the world around us. So most women I know can tell when, exactly what a customer is, needing, and then something going on with a team member, and their child may just be about to have a fever, and is that person at the bank kind of sad today, right? And we're just doing that effortlessly. We sort of effortlessly know what's going on. So when we're leading and growing companies as women, I think we have a unique perspective to being able to really I feel like I'm always micro adjusting little knobs and levers in my company, and moving things around, and just that ability to be global in how we think about cannabis and how we think about our offering to our customers on just many, many levels, right? Men, and I'm not all men, not all women are like this. I don't want to sound like I'm stereotyping, but men have that amazing ability to just laser focus, kind of tunnel vision and get shit done, but they sometimes can lose that, that global perspective.
Wow, I love that. And a word that was coming to mind when you were talking about this is patience. A lot of patience is required in that adaptability. Just a lot of faith and a lot of patience. Madison. So Madison Margolin is an incredible journalist and been following your work as long as I've known you. You've broken a lot of ground as a journalist because since the cannabis movement became an industry, there haven't been a lot of literal media outlets dedicated to cannabis journalism. So now you've branched off into the realm of psychedelia, and I would love to know what are some of the trends that you're noticing in regards to women's response to mind-altering substances.
So I think that, and you just touched on this a little bit, but women are natural caretakers, and so naturally women know how to hold space for people, whether they're going through a psychedelic trip and they need support, or if you're using cannabis and you need more attention to your wellness. And so I really do, when I say that cannabis is a gateway plant, I really mean it in that cannabis is like an introduction to having a more holistic approach and perception of your own wellness, and then you can apply that to other plant medicines or chemicals like MDMA. So I see the psychedelic industry sort of following the cannabis industry, and so my hope is that cannabis, we have a lot to learn from the cannabis space and a lot of also mistakes that have been made within cannabis that I hope are not repeated within psychedelics. But one thing I want to touch on is kind of this really subtle nuance, which is that women get periods, right? And so you have a couple days of the month where you're not really feeling so well, and I think, right? I know it's crazy. I would never really tell my boss, I'm not coming to work today because I'm not feeling well for my period. But I think it's something that really does put a dent in sort of the capitalist workforce, and it forces people to acknowledge their own humanity. And so I think that cannabis and psychedelics also are forcing people to deal with their own mental health and wellness more holistically, and I hope that the companies that are in the cannabis and psychedelic space can be have a more holistic take in regard to how they treat both their employees and then also how they function in the market more globally speaking. So my hope is with cannabis and psychedelics, using that as a jumping off point to look into questions of social equity and other forms or other ways to approach wellness and mental health, both in our economic system and broader than that too.
Beautiful. Do you also think, this is more just a personal question for me, will we see the day, Madison Margolin, where my microdose mushrooms look like this?
We're already seeing the day. Today's the day. No, but really, Denver has decriminalized psilocybin. Oakland passed a measure that has decriminalized all entheogenic plants. Portland has a measure on the table. New York has one that's getting started. Chicago, Dallas, Santa Cruz, Berkeley. It's a movement that has taken off since May, and there are more than 55 cities across the country that are now considering how to implement this kind of legislation. So in the places that are already decriminalized, you are seeing mini, businesses where people are putting like, mushroom powder into capsules. There's obviously like the Venice chocolate mushroom guy or whatever. So, we're seeing it. It's happening.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Courtney, speaking of products and product design, under Vertical Brands umbrella, you have multiple cannabis companies that you work with. What are some commonalities that you're witnessing that women want from cannabis products? Is it more aligned with the actual content of the product or the packaging or how it's presented to us?
I think it's all of the above. I have really been focusing on the wellness space, working with organic Ayurvedic herbs from India and coming up with products that appeal to, my mom, who is a yoga instructor and doesn't take a pill to save her life and has used cannabis the majority, as long as I can remember. And also for me, like the soccer mom, and really changing what that looks like at a kid's birthday party, and how do you talk about it at school, and how am I discussing it with my children. And I'm finding that the female consumer wants to really educate themselves before they just dive into the product. So I've been really focused on using my voice and helping guide the consumer through that, and the patients. I mean, I think there's so much that we have to do to help people, and we need to educate.
Absolutely. I feel like all of you guys are very aligned in the cannabis meets wellness sector. And Nicole, particularly you are the only healthcare professional in California to have founded a retail cannabis operation, which I think is amazing and also insane. But yes.
Right. If you guys know any other ones, I'm forming a club.
Say that again?
There we go. You guys know any other healthcare professionals in California or across the nation that have plant-touching cannabis businesses? Please introduce me, because we want to form a club, because I really feel like that's the intersection.
I'm going to make some
club of one.
introductions for you.
Oh, please. Great.
So how do you see cannabis as a wellness tool? Maybe not even necessarily in the broader sense, but what does your personal relationship with cannabis look like, and how do you promote thoughtful consumerism?
Yeah, so my personal relationship with cannabis, I am a cannabis consumer now. Not early in my life, but I am now, and I really do use it medicinally, mainly for sleep. It takes a lot to shut this down at night. And Erin's Garden Society chocolates are my friend. That's my little treat at dinner, and then I like, when the back of the toy winds down. So my husband's like, whoa, there, it just kicked in. Now you're gonna sleep. So definitely for sleep, definitely for, cycle related, issues are like my main uses. But I've always seen, as I mentioned at the beginning, cannabis being, repositioned as a wellness product. Like that's where this is all going. And if we look at the new market, right? Those of us creating, and putting products to market, the person that wants to get our super stoned guy we talked about at the beginning, or woman, that person kind of already knows where they're getting their products from, right? Whether that's on the illegal market or, at the dispensary that they've always gone to. Our newer consumers, our female consumers, our older adults, PS, fastest growing demographic for cannabis, they are the ones who are wanting lower dose products, 5 milligrams or less. They are the ones who are looking at cannabis for a health goal, right? And that's what Aeon Botanica, I built it for that, where there's cannabis, we sell cannabis, but we also have a whole line of non-cannabis herbs and supplements that are dietitian designed with an herbalist that is also on our team, because we think cannabis is an amazing master plant, but there's this whole host of other plants and then lifestyle practices, and you can come to Aeon and get a massage and get acupuncture, eat in our health cafe, and buy cannabis. Like you can come spend the whole damn day with us. Like we would love that.
Are you opening up any rooms for rent?
I what?
Are you opening up any rooms for rent at that location? Now, Erin, you're also obviously in the female-centric wellness cannabis space, and you were like the origin of Garden Society. You were the first influence for a lot of women, introducing them to cannabis. How did you design your introduction to women, or how did you try to present this in the most
Yeah, interesting. I didn't actually, frankly. I found cannabis to help me more than anything. So I was using it in the closet because I was afraid of what people would think. I managed a $100 million business. My husband and I have a joint venture with Constellation in wine country where we have a national wine brand with them. And I was ashamed to tell people that I was using cannabis to replace my alcohol, to just have a really good time, to go to bed, all the great things that we know cannabis to be so powerful for. And my husband would grow. I'm a chemical engineer by degree, so I was making hash and tinctures and oils, and like, you should have seen my kitchen lab. It was pretty good. And I wasn't telling anyone what I was doing, and my friend called me out on it, was like, so your husband's telling me you're making edibles and you're not sharing. And so I was like, well, come on over. Sure. I mean, I didn't know you were interested. Okay. And so two of my girlfriends came over. My in-laws, who I love dearly, live across the street from me. And so we started having high holiday baking parties before like every awkward holiday get-together with your family, which is often in my life. And so my party started growing. So it started with 3, it went to 6, 12. All of a sudden, 46 women were at my house wanting to learn about cannabis. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. First of all, I realized where I was ashamed that I wasn't happy when I was having all this external success, I was ashamed that I couldn't find more joy in my life. All these other women were in the same place. And I was like, holy shit, I'm just normal, first off. And then second off, they were all there because they wanted to learn about weed. They wanted to eat it, smoke it, try it. Anything they could do to touch cannabis in any capacity was why they were there. And so it dawned on me, and it was really my purpose is to do something about this. It was also because they were there because there was nothing for them, just like there was nothing for me. And so that was a precipice of how we started Garden Society. Today, we actually do in-home parties for women where we drive education front and center, and then we run a statewide delivery service. So our products are distributed in 81 dispensaries across the state. So we're here in LA. We're going to be in Nicole's Cafe shortly. So you can access this through the retail channel, but what we found is a lot of women don't even know what to ask. They don't know where to start. They don't know how to begin the conversation. Where do I go? What's THC? I don't want to talk to that 24-year-old bro. I'm uncomfortable. How do I talk about my period to some young guy? And I'm 50. What the hell? How do I deal with menopause? So we actually put education in their home with their friends in an intimate way where they're comfortable asking questions, and then they can either go into their dispensary through a promotion with the retailer, or they can order on our website and have it delivered to their home. And it's been really resonating with consumers. We have 26 parties booked between now and Christmas, so we're a little bit frantic with excitement. But it's good.
That's amazing. Gone are the Tupperware parties.
Tupperware parties for weed. Tupperware parties for fun. Who wants leftovers?
Keep your weed in the Tupperware. Good one. There's some integration there as well, I see. Now, Elizabeth, from a marketing perspective, you've worked with a wealth of different companies, and what I'm curious about is, are there any, surely there are cliches that marketers are leaning off of to lure in female consumers, but what are some of those cliches, and then how do we break the hell out of them so that, we're not bikini-clad ladies on billboards?
Yeah, I just read something about how it used to be about bongs and thongs, and I was like, I saw that. Yeah, and that's hard because at the helm of many successful cannabis companies are men who still want to portray women in a way that is maybe over-sexualized or stereotypical. And I think it's incumbent on us as we grow in this category as women that we sort of carry the torch that showcases that women really purchase products based on education and how you connect with them in an inspirational way. What are you doing? What does the product do? How does it deliver a need? And how does it make me want to contribute to your business? Are you giving back to the community? Do you care about the same values I care about? So I think it really is back to basics. I think packaging that is reflective, that is beautiful. I worked on Candescent, and it's a beautiful package with beautiful product inside. And so these products are nice and maybe attract women, but it doesn't need to be pink to attract women. It doesn't need to be sort of positioned in a certain way. It's really about delivering on the health and wellness. And, in my career, I've only worked on one brand that I can say targeted women. And it's because historically, brands would always target the man and the woman would follow. And I think it's a new day, and it's a new opportunity for us to change, to shift the paradigm, and to lead with brands that attract women, and then the men will follow. This is our opportunity to make that shift.
I have a fun fact add on there. So I read this recently that, so looking at all the 11, I think we're up to 11 adult use states, and the POS data is still showing that only about 28% of dispensary sales on legal markets are made to women, right? But then you look at survey data across the whole United States, and it's pretty much 50-50 men and women using cannabis. Like, just as many women are using it.
Yep.
And then one more statistic, I know it's late, math, that across all consumer packaged goods, right, from things bought at Walgreens, cat litter, eyeshadow, like things brought for the house, 76% of buying decisions are made by women.
Yep.
So women are normally buying all these consumer packaged goods, but they're not buying it in these legal dispensaries yet. So what's the disconnect? And that's what Ann Botanica, that's like our mission, solving for as a female-founded brand, as an education-focused brand. Carrying wellness design products that really have a lot of educational backbone in their brand as well, right? You can't just rely on the retail staff and the retail brand to do the education. They should as well, but double duty with brands like are represented up here that are also educating that. And that's what's going to reach women. Women that are going to cannabis for wellness are not just, like, they're not doing it to get super, super high, right? They're doing it to just balance out their mood and their life, and they need the education, behind it. But anyway, I just thought that was interesting. So creating not only retail environments that women are comfortable in, that's an additional thing besides the brands.
Right, absolutely.
No, I think that's so interesting. And also, a woman's relationship with cannabis, or at least for me, is improving the quality of life. Like, that's why women tend to buy things in general. Now, I have a question. I don't know if there's any mothers on the panel, but there is. Okay, great, amazing. Oh, great. Yes. Okay, cool. Madison, sit this one out. But there is a lot of stigma or self-deprecation of women feeling like they need to be closeted about their cannabis usage. Even my own mother. And now my mom and I, she visited California, and we went to the Lowell Cafe together, and I was like, what is happening? This is insane. but it was amazing. But something I'm really curious about, and I'm not a mother yet, but what do you think is the appropriate relationship of a mother with cannabis? And do you think that's like the next step or the next stigma that has to be broken? Is you're a bad mom if you smoke weed to go to sleep?
I'm going to say no. I don't think I'm a bad mom because
I don't think you're a bad mom.
To go to sleep. I try to have the conversation with my kids about plant medicine. And instead of taking drugs and pharmaceutical, my kids have seen me go through 2 of my spine surgeries and have seen me crawl on the floor, be down where I couldn't move, and they brought a skateboard over to get me on it to wheel me into the bedroom. And my kids are 9 and 10, and this was a few years ago. So to them, I am actually a more present, get down on the floor, relax from my day mom. And I guess when they started kindergarten, I was a little scared of, like, what's this conversation going to be like? And I remember hitting a vape pen at a party, and literally, that vape pen passed around the room. And then I started going, okay, you know what, there's something here, because they woke up in the morning and they didn't have a hangover, and they stopped popping bottles of champagne and opening bottles of wine, and they started asking me, what do I do? This is what's happening. This is how I'm feeling. How can I feel better? How can I sleep better? What should I try? My elbow hurts. What topical should I use? how many milligrams should it have in it? And then I just started talking about it. And I just said, you know what, to hell with it. And now I'm so unapologetic about it. When somebody asks me what I do, I'm in the cannabis industry. It's my passion. I feel that I was meant to be in this space. Thanks. And the more I do that and the more I say that, the easier it becomes. And I think all of us, especially that are in the space, need to talk about it.
I agree. I think there is some caution to be had when you're, unfortunately, cannabis is still federally illegal, so Child Protective Services is still involved in the equation. And I think there's a lot of privilege as a white woman that I have in this relationship, and I think it's really important from a conversation perspective, we understand that privilege and we do everything we can to address it and to address equity, and we do everything we can do to address disproportionate communities with the war on drugs, because that's real. Yeah. So I know women who can't smoke pot because they'll get arrested and their children will be taken from them. And that's a real situation. So we can't pretend that that doesn't exist today, but I do think from a place of privilege, we can educate and we can destigmatize and we can advocate and we can do everything in our power to get better policy at the local and national level. So
I agree. And to add to that, I'm part of a lot of these like cannabis moms groups around the country, and everybody's talking about it, and they're worried of these cannababies and pregnancy and consuming cannabis. And I've really enjoyed watching it evolve over the last several years of the conversation, and the medical community and the physicians and the doctors and the hospitals getting involved more.
For sure.
Is there anything you wanted to add, Nicole?
I mean, you guys kind of rounded it out. I just because I've been in cannabis, so I have one son, he's 10, and we've been involved in the industry, my husband and I, for a very long time. And I remember the first time him, seeing us smoking a joint, passing a joint around at a barbecue at our house, and he just learned about how bad cigarettes were. And he's like, Mama, he's like, you can't smoke. You're smoking a cigarette. It's bad for you. He's like freaking out. And I just looked at him. My friends all looked at me like, what's she gonna say? And I was like, it's fairy flowers. He's a Waldorf kid. I'm like, it's fairy flowers, and it's from the fairies, and it helps everyone feel better, and it's just medicine.
That's awesome.
Like that, and everyone was like, so for years, up until, he's 10 now, up until maybe like 3 years ago, finally, I was like, okay, bub, so fairy flowers is cannabis, and that's why, because he saw a billboard, he saw a MedMen billboard that said cannabis, and he's like, cannabis? I think I know what that is. I'm like, yeah, fairy flowers. That's it. And then we kind of started having a whole, conversation about it. And then it's been really, and for years, for those same reasons, right? Because up until Prop 64 passed, there was no legal grows. Do you guys realize that? There was legal medical dispensaries, but like the weed store brought it there. So like as growers, as part of collectives, that's been a very interesting place to to be in. So we've kind of kept it quiet that that's what we do, that like his father, my husband's a very accomplished musician and producer. He's also a very accomplished cultivator for 25 years. But we've kind of just in the last couple years been like, hey, guess what? Like this is also what your father does. And he's very good at this, and really starting to show him. So that's been really special for me to kind of come out of the closet, right? And now all the moms at the school know. I think any moms in here, if they want a garden society to do a party at their house, right?
PTA party.
I've got a purse, so come see me later. I think the other thing we do that I think is relevant for all the moms is we talk about how to talk to your kids about cannabis, especially as teenagers, because there's a lot of moms who are afraid to have that conversation. They'll say, I had a mom the other day say, oh, well, I'm really happy you're in childproof packaging because my 17-year-old won't be able to open it. And I was like, well, that's like, your 17-year-old can open a bottle of vodka, and they can definitely open a thing of joints. I hate to say it. So this doesn't take away parenting, and so arming moms with tools to talk to their kids, just like you would with alcohol, just like what you would with unprotected sex, like all of that, it's just another piece of the parenting dynamic and how to have that conversation like Nicole, like Courtney, in a way that drives education and acceptance, I think is really powerful.
Beautifully said. Thank you. This is some practical advice, actually. So thank you so much. I would love to open up to some questions. Oh, great, beautiful. If that's all right with you, ladies? Cool.
Sure.
I just want to say thank you all. It's so validating. I am co-owner of an edibles company, and I insisted on going toward an upscale image that women would be comfortable with. And it's so validating to hear all of you speak. Thank you so much.
Wow,
Thank
awesome.
you.
Keep going, sister.
Cute. Does anyone else have any questions that they would like? That's
Yes.
right.
Right.
She
The
is.
future is female.
Future is it's true.
Yes.
Question on funding. Can you guys talk about funding? And what are some tools and things that you would recommend
Yeah.
for an entrepreneur?
Blood,
Aaron,
sweat,
Aaron,
and
Aaron,
tears.
we really want to
capital
start.
raise what- can you give us some
We're like
context?
in the grind together.
What kind of funding are you looking for? How much? Just rough context.
Non-plant touching data analytics company and really creating platforms. Technology is very, very expensive. So we're looking for a seed of 1 million to, we're launching, but to
Cool.
excel.
So I'm a plant touching business. We're vertically licensed in Sonoma County. For us, it's different as a plant touching. If you're non-plant touching, I think you have a lot more opportunity. The world is your oyster for investing. I think you're a woman, so you're automatically at a disadvantage. So you're going to have to get really tough and gritty. But I think you should go to the angel networks. I think there's a lot of really wonderful angel networks that support women entrepreneurs, especially with technology. So look at Silicon Valley, look at Females Founders Fund. There's a big angel network out of New York that's funding ancillary cannabis technology companies. So I would just get really good. What I made the mistake of when I launched for fundraising, so we closed our first round last year, we're closing our second round now. I would walk into the big funds. I'd go into Courtney's office and be like, I'm Garden Society, I need $500,000. And they're like, yeah, we write $25 million checks. And I'd be like, oh, okay. So, I go through my whole pitch and they were like, cool idea, you're great. No. So I didn't do my education on who I was pitching and why. So my biggest piece of advice to people fundraising, especially early stage fundraising, is do your research on what your potential investors invest in and what size check amounts, and make sure it aligns to what you need, and save yourself a shit ton of time.
Excellent.
I don't know, Nicole?
Yeah, I would say that. If you've never fundraised before, getting somebody that can actually advise you on how to make a really good pitch deck. I think
Get a
I'm
mentor.
on pitch deck number 917 now. I've just and then also reiterating it, right? After every pitch that you do, or if they say no, ask why. So many women I think are like, oh my God, they said no. Shit, get me out of here, right? Instead, go, okay, you said no. I'm just curious. What that is. It could be something like, oh, this fund that we have only writes $25 million checks, and that's it. But they could be like, well, this doesn't make sense to me on your model, and then you go, back to the drawing board and figure out, what that piece is, and make sure you raise enough money. Statistically, women tend to not raise enough capital. It's kind of this systemic fear of asking, I think, that women have, and it's really pushed my envelope to, to really make sure that we are, have raise enough capital and be confident. Yeah.
If you're doing a tech company, you should double or triple it.
Yeah.
Because it goes fast. The other thing I would say, just to add to that, to what Nicole said, is you need to look at investors for the long term. So every investor you meet is a relationship you want to keep. So even if they say no, so for example, I had an investor last year tell me no, and then I would send them little updates, and I'd say, oh, guess what? We just launched statewide delivery. Oh, check out this amazing feature in Forbes. Hey, hope you're well. Weather's terrible here in Sonoma. We're burning down. Here's a cool piece of media for you. Literally. And guess what? Awesome. Send me your deck. Yeah. So you want to be topical, you want to be top of mind, you don't want to overburden the investors, but give them value, give them nuggets, show them progress, right? Show them that you can execute, because they're investing in an idea and an executor on that idea. And never, just because they say no doesn't mean give up on the relationship, because they'll come around.
Excellent. I think we have time for one more question.
Come talk to us. There's like 3.
I'm happy. So I'm a plant touching company, and I mean, it took us a while to raise, but we raised a significant amount of capital. We raised $58 million in our Series A. But it was literally like high net worth individuals, and we got a lot of no's, and just as a team, we're very persistent. And I always say, I don't collect things, I collect people. And I just have built my relationships and network, and just, like Erin said, you're not gonna have returns immediately. I mean, this is startup, and we're years into this, and it still feels like a startup because there's just so much. And when you can't lease your real estate and you have to buy it and you have to build everything ground up, it's just very capital consuming. When you're buying a huge farm and then you're planting 50 acres, it costs a lot of money to do that.
So I have a follow-up question on this, and I'd like to talk about due diligence in the industry. This is an industry where my feeling is you have to have the highest level of due diligence in this particular industry, or you're going to get burned. Partnerships go bad. There are horror shows, and this is years and years and years. Everyone has one. So could you guys speak to is like fighting the sense of, I'm going to take the first money that comes. I'm going to work with whoever comes, so that you make the right deal for yourselves. And is that tougher if you feel like you're not taken seriously, that avenues are cut off for you? What are the challenges in that there?
I'm happy to start.
Due diligence.
We've made a lot of mistakes along the way. I don't think that there's a perfect science to this. I think we've gotten better at it, and we certainly, we say we have a no asshole policy, but it doesn't mean there's no assholes around. It's like, okay, if you know you're an asshole, it's gotten to the point where we do as much due diligence as we can, and people are doing so much due diligence on us. And I try to, lead with my reputation and integrity every day. But you know what? We don't always get it right, and we upset people along the way, and deals go bad. But this is no different than any other business out there. It's just with a giant spotlight on you.
We do a lot where one thing I've learned really quickly is ask for references. So with potential distributors, send me your top 3 customers and let me talk to them. With retail partners, negotiating terms up front. Everything has a signed contract. I never do a handshake deal, because if you do a handshake deal, you will get screwed. Like, there's simple business lessons that I think are really applicable, but there's a lot of pressure not to follow the true comments, like your true business intuition, because everybody wants to go fast and everybody's a shyster jiver. We got to do this right now. And if you just are very disciplined in saying, you know what, if I wait 1 week to sign my distribution contract to make sure I sign a good contract, that is going to save my business the potential risk that 1 week of business on the upside wouldn't really matter. So I think some of those fundamentals are really important in this industry, and you'd be surprised at how many people don't do them.
And that's no different from any other industry. I mean, in every other industry, you're doing that deep due diligence, and sometimes I think investors in this space just want to get into the space.
They aren't doing their diligence.
On both sides.
I have an investor questionnaire. And so it's 3 questions, and you'd be surprised how many people can't fill out the 3 questions. The third one being, what's your favorite type of chocolate?
Wow. Right.
But if they can't do that, then why would they be a good investor for me?
I know, I'm blown away by how little diligence investors actually do. The ones who have actually ended up, investing in this round have they've done their diligence. But we've actually had a few that just haven't. I was like, really? Like, you don't really? And we just had a pitch last week where they sent this 35 question. My CFO was here. This 35 question questionnaire that they wanted the answers back in writing. And like most of the stuff was in the materials, but I was like, wow, you're really wanting us to put this together and do some homework. And I got on the call with them. I was like, this is great. Like, thank you for this homework assignment that really made us, you know, dig deep. And also to everyone's point, like, if you're raising money, don't be desperate if you can avoid it. Like, if you really, you know, can bring in the right investors. I always tell investors that, like, once you're an investor while we're in this like back and forth pitching period, but once you're in, like, you're part of the Aeon Botanica family. You are our family, and we're going to treat you like that, and we want you we want to be like that with you and have a real open door relationship, because a lot of these partners I brought on have been extremely successful in other industries, and they have strategic knowledge that I do not have. I always joke, like, only in cannabis does me with an MPH, no MBA, no finance degree, get to be the CEO. Right? It's very, my Rolodex, my experience in all of that, but I'm, surrounding myself with people, mainly our investors, that are true strategic partners for, building and scaling the business.
So they bring more than just money to the table.
Exactly. More than money. That's exactly what
Money's
to
not
do
bad,
that.
though.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much.
Anyone want to write me a check? I'm just kidding. What's your favorite chocolate? Just kidding. Sorry. I'm not desperate.
Perhaps we can continue this conversation off the stage, but that wraps up our time. Thank you guys so much for being here today. Thank you to all of you. It was wonderful to meet you. Thank you.